Hey, Steve, I just wanted to say we've got a storm coming on this one.
Yeah, it's a whopper of a storm.
This is a whopper of a storm. This conversation is about what? The weather in your head,
Yeah.
not just the weather outside.
Yep. So you want to stay to the end and watch the full thing because we get some good
Absolutely.
tips out this one.
Thunder and lightning, baby. Hey, Steve, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing very well here. Back in the U.S. of A. From a beautiful stint in Lima, Peru. Really enjoyable with family and all. So,
Yep.
hey everybody, welcome to the Steve and Steve Show. My name is Steve Wastenberg,
And I'm Steve Walsh.
and we
Steve,
sure do appreciate y'all coming here.
yep. Thanks for watching us. So, Steve, welcome back to the States.
Thanks.
How long were you out in?
I was actually there for 2 months.
2 months.
The longest we were there ever was 6 months. And then now we've had a couple of stints in the last 30 plus years that are 2 months. Love the country, just love Peru. If you haven't been to Peru, folks, you got to go. And if you really, want a guided tour, why we do that. It's going to cost some money, but you're going to dig it.
Yep. Well,
Steve, question for you. How's the weather in your head today?
weather in my head. Today I am gonna say it's on the foggy side.
Foggy. Why is that, Mr. Walsh? Why is your head full of fog? You're drinking coffee.
Yeah, I haven't had a coffee. It just feels that way, right? I know I
What
have
does
some things.
foggy feel like?
Huh? What
What
does it
does
feel like?
foggy feel like? Yeah.
Like not focused,
Okay.
right? So right today I know I have a lot that I gotta get done,
Okay.
and I haven't. It's all in my head. I haven't written it down, and then once I write it down and I look at that one item, then I'll get focused and the fog will be lifted, right? But I know right now I'm racking my head in one of the success principles we have is cleaning up your messes. And the concept to clean up your messes is to create a list of all the incomplete projects you have, incomplete stuff.
Right.
And that's where I'm at. I have a lot of incomplete stuff that I need to get done today. I haven't created that list, and so I don't have clarity of what I need to get done. So I feel on that fog side of thinking. It's just there's stuff in my head that's bouncing around, and it's just not. I haven't taken control of it yet.
Okay. So a question about that. So my familiarity with fog is both Lima, because Lima tends to have, it's on the ocean, it tends to have a lot of fog rolling in.
Mhm.
And I spend a lot of time in San Francisco, which is famous for its fog. Now, I used to like to watch the fog roll in, and I used to kind of like to watch, even here in Colorado, sometimes in the spring where you're driving down the highway and all of a sudden there's this big fog bank that comes in and it kind of settles in over the lakes and really is a cool looking thing. Is that the kind of fog that you're seeing in your head right now, or no, it's not?
No, it's
Let me
kind of
ask you.
there's just a lot going on in there, right? So I just don't have clarity, right?
So that leads me to my next question.
Well, hold before you
Okay.
let's not leave fog. So the
Okay.
best place to watch
Oh, I
fog.
was staying in fog, by the way.
So the best place to watch fog is up in the mountains.
Yeah, right.
When you're up a little bit higher and the fog is just a little bit right, and
Absolutely.
you got the pine trees and the fog just kind of rolling with the pine trees and peeking
Yeah.
out a little bit, and then you get the big mountain peak that kind of sticks out every once in a while. That's some good fog.
Dude, I've got a seriously cool set of pictures in and around fog. Do you mind? Maybe I put those in. We link them down here on this video. I think so, because I have one exactly like that going up Trail Ridge, and the fog is settling in that valley right before you get up to the top.
Yeah.
And it's got the pine trees up above it and stuff. So we'll put some
I
pictures in there.
I am so itching to go up into the mountains to go on a
Let's do it, man.
nice hike.
Let's do it. We got to get some
Unfortunately,
hikes
like
in.
they're like having like something like 6 feet of snow today for. So we'll be
Yeah,
happy to get
you're right. We probably can't, although again, no snow yet. So my question is exactly around this. So it's one thing to be out looking at the fog that's outside. You don't have a lot of control over that fog being there, right? It's going to be rolling in or it's not. And
Mhm.
you're an observer in that. However, as we put the metaphor in your head,
Mhm.
and I asked you the question about that fog, could you turn that fog that's in your head into the picture that you just described of the pine trees coming out? And would that make a difference in terms of either being in a very mindful area in your head or maybe even getting out of underneath the fog?
Not so much the picture of the mountains, right? Um, but it's, I mentioned that the principle of cleaning up your messes. So yes, if I'm aware, and that's one of the things I teach is the self-awareness, right? What is your body telling you? So being aware of what's going on in your head, if it's the fog or some a different kind of storm, you can make those adjustments. So I know I'm sitting in the fog. You asked me what the weather is, and I thought about it, and so that became, by you asking me, brought my awareness to it, and so now I can focus on, okay, I need to create my to-do list for today. And then once I have my to-do list, I'll have some clarity. So going from a fog to a clear, very,
Mm-hmm.
very similar to you driving down the road, you hit fog, you can't see what's in front of you, but you got to keep moving. Where if I write down my to-do list, I have clarity of my path. I've lifted that fog. That
Right.
that
So what I was trying to elicit from you, and it doesn't look like it's quite happening, is in the real world outside, we don't control, how the fog is because we look at it and you're driving down that highway and you run into a fog bank. It's like, oh, I can't see. I got to be really careful here because that's what it is.
yeah.
Or you're driving up trail ridge and you envision this fog here, that you see the fog, I'm sorry, that's just beautiful, absolutely stunning. Those are two real things. In your
Yeah.
head, the fog is something that you have control over or you don't have control over. That's my question.
Uh, well, I am not a therapist,
Oh, for God's sakes.
but
Yeah.
that's my disclaimer, just like you do your disclaimers on
Oh,
trading.
I got you. All right. Okay, I'll let you have that.
So I didn't think this would be a fun conversation. So from a life coaching standpoint, yeah, I believe that we can change, right? It's your state of mind, right? So from and that's why I said I'm not a therapist, because I think there are some things that where people need to get professional help.
Oh, well, of course,
So,
yes.
but from my standpoint, I know, and this is years of me getting to know myself and reading lots of books and working with different coaches to know the different tools and techniques to help me move from different state to state. Having that awareness to move, right? So we talk about fog as one aspect of it being, there's stuff in your head, it's not very clear. How can you get clear, right? That's
Yeah.
the difference between fog and the opposite of a fog is clarity. You hit fog on the highway, you don't have clear vision to keep moving forward. You lift the fog, you have clear vision of the path, right? So that's the analogy there for fog. But what if you have the not so much a snowstorm, but maybe it's a huge like hurricane type rain, lightning, tornadoes, high winds, and that's in your head,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's to me, that's like worry,
Anxiety, worry.
negativity,
Yeah.
something you're
Yeah.
just in that worry state of mind. Maybe that, maybe, I don't know, maybe you got that IRS letter, maybe you got the, just something that came at
Some
you and
sort
you're
of a
like, holy
virus.
cow, this storm is huge,
Yeah.
right? So that is probably maybe where you were wanting me to go instead of
Actually, no. I was fine staying on the fog, but now that you've brought up the major, storm, since we're supposed to be getting a major storm, my point is the difference between the outside world of the metaphor we're talking about of the storm, whatever it is, or fog, or rain, or sunlight, that we really are just observers in because we don't control the weather, as compared to the weather in our head. And even if it is that there's legitimate things that are giving you that anxiety and that worry, can you turn that worry and that anxiety into a kind of sunny day? Or maybe you don't want a sunny day, but can you turn that storm into something like the fog you saw on the mountain that is beautiful to see, as opposed to it being the burden that we so often will say, I can't do anything about the fact that I got this IRS letter and it's going to be horrible what's happening. Can you change that to, well, this might be a learning experience for me. I'm going to learn a whole bunch about how the IRS works and what it is for the next time that I might get that audit or something like that. And all of a sudden, that weather either turns into a beautiful looking storm or the sun comes out. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So the answer I believe is yes, right? And not I don't know if I would use the same analogies you would use, but I would, I think fog is a good. People use fog a lot when they, how to describe what's going on in their head. The storm that, there's different storms, right? There's minor storms, and then you have the hurricanes that are just everything being thrown at you. So I think the analogy that you came up with, the topic of, having weather in your head, is a good analogy. The sunshine, right? Beautiful crystal, beach weather, that sounds happy, sounds like picnicky type activity, right? I think that contrast to a storm and having a sunny day is there, right? You feel good. So so one of the things I go through is, if you're worried, one of the things I read about someplace, I don't know who had the quote, but it's like 90% of the things we worry about never come true.
Yeah.
Right. So it's,
like the storm. Sorry.
But the current
snowstorm.
Yeah. I think it's delayed.
The horrible snowstorm.
It's delayed. It's coming.
Yeah.
So it is that worrisome, right? I give you an example. There's more realistic stuff. I think that, I think when everybody gets a letter from the IRS, when they first open up their mailbox, I think the first thought is like, oh crap, what's this, right? And that just happened to me because we were working on some financial aid for the kids' college, and you have to link your IRS data to their financial aid, the government financial aid. Well, then what does the IRS sends you a letter saying that you did that? Well, when you get the letter, you're like, oh man, what's this? And you open, like, oh, so just start right away. I was like worried, like, oh, I'm gonna have to like answer this letter or something like that. And it just done notifying me that what I did a few days ago
was your
right. But I was in a place when you first see that, you start to worry. But there's other things that you can do. People, maybe it's something at work. You have like a presentation, right? So people get all worked up about a presentation. Maybe it's a job interview. They get all worked up about that actual job interview. And so going into that day, maybe the night before they're thinking about it. And so as they sleep, they don't get a good night's sleep because they're concerned about, am I going to say the right things? What the questions they're going to ask? Whatever that event is, that builds that storm in their head. So they wake up all with anxiety and worry, and the images that they're painting for that story hasn't happened yet, but they're making it up, and it may not, what they're playing, it may not be true. So I think you need to kind of look at that and say, what is true? right? What can I control on the situation and what is true?
Right. And so that's my point about the weather in your head. You do have the ability to change some of that weather, or, and I wasn't expecting this, to your point, look at that weather in a different way. So with the analogy of the fog again, you can look at the fog as, oh dear, blocking the whole highway and everything that I'm doing, and oh, I can't do anything. Or you could look at the fog as that beautiful view of the mountains that you said. And my thing is really keeping the idea of that the weather in our head, we have control not just to change the weather, but also to look at the weather in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And too many people, I think, treat the weather in their head like they treat the weather outside, namely, I have no control over this.
Mm-hmm.
This thing is coming, this storm is coming, and I'm just going to have to weather the storm.
Yeah.
It's going to be bad news, and and then to your point, 90% of the time, it isn't half of what they thought it was. It's not even close to what they thought it was. And they didn't have to have all the anxiety of that because they could have changed it beforehand or during it, they can change. So it all comes down to a kind of a mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And how you view it, right?
Yeah.
So as you were talking, an example, when I'm building our coaching practice, and some of the things that I look at is, I come from an analytical programmer background. People have always brought work to me, and now I have to go out and bring that work in, right? From a sales cycle perspective. And so there is some anxiety and some worry that I put on myself looking at that task of being able to have to, but I could look at it and go, oh, I don't want to do that. You hear a lot of people, they join these multi-level marketing companies, right? Or they want to start their own business. And I think I'm just going to advertise, I'm just going to market, and it's going to come. Well, that's not how it works. You have to actually go out and get stuff. You just can't, people need to know who you are. You just can't throw an advertisement up and expect the floods to come. You have to actually be active, right?
Right.
So this is a new area for me. And so there's a lot of, worry, anxiety, fear that comes up in my head, right? But I look at it, instead of looking at it and saying, oh, I don't want to do that, I looked at it from a different angle and said, it's not going to be fun, but if I go through this process, I'm going to learn some new skills. I'm going to develop a new mental muscle. And once I get past this, I don't know if it'll ever go away, those anxieties or fears, but at least I'll know, I know what to do.
Yeah.
Right? And I can exercise that muscle and get past that fear. We've mentioned it a few times, right? The stuff that we really want is on the other side of fear.
Yeah.
So that's, I think that's where you're trying to guide me, is to look at it from a different angle versus this.
Right. No, I think that's a great analogy. I think that's a great example of how you're going into the storm and saying, I can weather this in a good way. Okay. In a way that I either I'm going to get through this and have a great learning experience. And then the next time a storm comes, I'm going to be much better prepared to go through that storm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably doing it a little bit more on the child side of things. So go back for a moment and remember when you were a little kid and a big rainstorm or thunderstorm was coming. Most of us as little kids weren't afraid of that. And I'm not talking about really little. I'm talking, 5, 6, 7, 10 years old. We weren't afraid of it. We were like, Mom, can I run outside and go play in the storm? And Mom would say, well, yeah, the lightning and all. But I don't know about you, but I snuck out many times. And in the midst of the thunder and the rain and running around, it was awesome. So I'm kind of thinking about that in my head, of a more childlike experience of the storm or whatever the weather is in your head. But I think both of them, the point is we do have control over the weather in our head, unlike the weather outside. And we got to keep that in mind. We have control over how we approach or how we respond to the things that happen around us.
Yep. And so part of the development is becoming aware, right? And when you become aware of what's going on in your head, then you can make those adjustments, right? So it's continuing to think, okay, what's going on? Why am I feeling this way? And asking yourself the correct questions so you can make those adjustments, right? So if maybe it is the fog, that awareness, right? Say, okay, what can I do to get some clarity, right? I'm worried, I'm anxious. You have that feeling, and you say, okay, if I have that feelings here, then it's certainly going on up here, right? And so if it's the worry, anxiety, then you got a storm going on up here. So what can you do, right? And one of the key things is to get your body, instead of the negativity and the bad feelings, anxiety, worry, fear, all that's negative, instead of being hung out in that space, how do you get yourself out of a negative or a bad feeling and get yourself into a happier state, right? And that's where you recognize it and you go, okay, I need to change my state. What is that state? And so it could be throwing on the Van Halen music that we were playing earlier with Jump, right? Jump. And just focus on the music, right?
Might as well jump.
Yeah.
And that's not jump off a cliff, by the way. That's jump into whatever it is you're going to do.
Right. But there's things like that, right? You can, maybe there's good music that you heard when you were on a beach someplace, and just go put that music on and visualize being back on the beach. So you can change your state. And when you change your state, then that can kind of remove some of that anxiety, the fears,
absolutely,
and stuff like that. So that's
and then I think that the fog, let's use that analogy because we've been going on it, the fog turns into that fog that's in the mountain valleys and the challenge actually becomes really interesting.
Yeah, that's and then that's so that you're enjoying. Yeah, you're enjoying that ride, right? Enjoying that journey, and
Wow, I thought this was a good one, Steve. I really like it. We're probably going to wrap it up.
It's interesting how we come up with these topics, and we really have no idea where it's going to lead.
Yeah. Well, I hope our audience enjoyed it as much as I did, and I sure hope they enjoyed this as well.
Yeah. Well, what they could do is, if you did enjoy this topic, certainly hit that thumb and like, and if you haven't subscribed, certainly hit subscribe, because that always helps YouTube let YouTube know that we have got something going on here, and that'll get the word out in the YouTube algorithms. So we certainly appreciate anybody who does subscribe, for sure, and certainly if you're hitting that like button, it certainly helps too. So.
Well, and comment, darn it, we'd love to hear more from you about what you think. What's your weather like in your head? Put some comments on there to tell us what your weather is like in your head. We'd love to get that conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Steve, we probably better wrap it up.
Yep.
Because that storm, that big storm is coming.
That's right. We get a lot done today knowing that it's snowing out.
Cheers. I'm hoping this is like one of the last of these damn Zoom ones we do. Not anything against Zoom, but next week will be in person.
In person, yeah, definitely.
All right.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.